Yes, got it. Thank you.
Okay. And I will start the cloud recording.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay. After all that excitement, just want to welcome everybody to Monday Night Meditation. We're very excited to have Dean Slider back again. And we're looking at For Esme with Love and Squalor. And my name is Elise Gittleman. I'm the Zoom host for Natural Dharma Fellowship. I'm going to do a quick tech talk just to go over what we're doing. I apologize that if I try to make my slides full screen, the computer just decides that's funny, but it's not a thing it's going to do. So I will read the slides and hopefully you'll know. So during most of the teaching, I will have Dean spotlighted. But if you would like to have gallery view instead, you can go to the upper right corner and click up there so that you see everyone the same size. You can show or hide subtitles using the CC button at the bottom of the screen. The chat during the teaching, most of the time, is just if you need to reach out to me as the host for some technical issue I can't hear, I don't see any, whatever it is, unless Dean asks people to put stuff in the chat to get in touch with him, then he's probably not going to be looking there, certainly during the meditation, I don't think. When it's time to participate, you can use the raise hand feature at the bottom of the screen. Under reactions, you can use the raise hand feature on your hand if you like. You'll be able to unmute yourself at that point, and when you're done, remute yourself. If there's any reason that it doesn't work for you to speak your question today, you can type it in the chat to me, and I'm always happy to speak it out loud. And if there's any reason you want the comment or question to be anonymous, just let me know. And because we're recording this, when you speak, you're giving us your consent, your permission to use the recording. We do not, and we cannot edit out what you say afterwards. So just as a piece, and with that, I will stop my share and mute and turn it over to Dean. I'll stop my share.
Okay. Hi. Good to be back here again. Let's start by getting comfortable in our seats. Let me just kind of jiggle the body gently, jiggle the nervous system gently. And maybe do a couple of deep sighs. And then just sitting easily, naturally, with eyes open or closed, whatever's comfortable. You might notice that you're already aware. You might notice that the contents of awareness, the sounds, the sensations, the thoughts, the feelings, present themselves spontaneously, that there's no doing involved from our side. The things come, the things go. So nothing for us to do but sit easily, being in this situation of effortless awareness as it presents itself. Nothing to adjust, nothing to remember from our training or our reading. It's never been now before. It's never been this awareness before. This now is unprecedented. It's fresh. So let's rest here, here, here. Anytime we realize we've fallen into some resistance or some effort, some plan to improve on this moment of fresh awareness, just relax your grip on it. Relax back into reality, which is always this current state, this present awareness. Anything else is a project, a projection, so we don't bother with that. as always, take your time, allowing the body to wake up. Okay. How are we all doing? Everybody good? Excellent. Good. So good to be back talking 9 stories again, and in particular to be talking for Esme with Love and Squalor, this gorgeous story. A lot of people consider this to be the most beautiful story Salinger ever wrote. And in fact, in most countries outside of the U.S., this book is published under the title For Esme with Love and Squalor and Other Stories. By the way, someone pointed out to me that when I've been referring to page numbers on here, there are some editions that you may have where the pagination is different. So if our page numbers don't seem to match, just relax about it. Okay, you'll be fine. It's not crucial that you be seeing the type in front of your eyes. I'll be reading the words in question. I did want to, before we jump into Esme, I wanted to just take a couple of minutes about some of the intervening stories since last time that are not officially on the schedule. In particular, down at the dinghy, this won't go on your permanent record, but did any of you read Down at the Dinghy? Okay. So read Down at the Dinghy sometime, those of you who haven't. And for those who have, I want to ask you, I want to point out for everyone a particularly interesting line. The 2 main characters in the story are a mom named with the lovely name of Boo Boo Tannenbaum, and her son Lionel. And Lionel gets upset about something. You'll read the story, and he runs down to the boat, the family's dinghy. This is at their summer home, and refusing to come out of the dinghy. And Boo Boo comes down to try to deal with him, and she says, on page 80, if you have the same page numbers as I am, "It is I," Boo Boo said, "Vice Admiral Tannenbaum, née Glass." Okay, and née is spelled N-E-E with an accent mark over the first E, which is French for born. So when someone says née Glass, what does that mean? It means her maiden name is Glass. Okay, so at this point, the hair on the back of your neck may have been, wait a minute, wasn't that Seymour's last name? Wait a minute, maybe these aren't a bunch of disjointed short stories. Maybe some of these people are connected, are in fact related, right? And then there's some business about a diving mask. He says a pair of underwater goggles, which Lionel flings into the water. He rejects the diving mask. And his mother says something about, "Oh, those used to belong to your Uncle Seymour. He'd be so pleased," sarcastically. "Those used to belong to your Uncle Seymour. Then they belonged to your, where is it? I believe it says, yes, those belong to your Uncle Webb. They once belonged to your Uncle Seymour. Right? Oh, so there's more siblings here. So we're starting to get a little trail of breadcrumbs about how at least some of these people, some of these stories are connected. And remember that most of these stories were published over a period of years in the early 50s and actually through the 50s into the early 60s in the New Yorker. So Salinger's leading his loyal readers on a merry scavenger hunt until finally, when he gets to the story Zooey, and after you've read 9 stories, I do hope you'll read Franny and Zooey. It's just you gotta read it in this lifetime. And when finally he gets to the story Zooey in early 60s something, he finally spills the beans, and I'm sure this is kind of part of his sense of humor, in a footnote, right? And in the footnote, he says, the aesthetic evil of a footnote seems in order just here, I'm afraid. In all that follows, only the 2 youngest of the 7 children will be directly seen or heard. That's Franny and Zooey. The remaining 5, however, the senior 5, will be stalking in and out of the plot with considerable frequency, like so many Banquo's ghosts. The reader then may care to know at the outset that in 1955, the eldest of the Glass children, Seymour, had been dead almost 7 years. He committed suicide while vacationing in Florida with his wife, so that's a perfect day for banana fish. If alive, he would have been 38 in 1955. The second oldest child, Buddy, was what is known in campus catalog parlance as writer in residence at a girls' junior college in Upper New York State, blah, blah, blah. This character, Buddy, all that follows essentially takes over the series. And eventually we learn that Buddy, this writer who very much resembles J.D. Salinger, actually wrote all these books, including Catcher in the Rye. Salinger didn't write Catcher in the Rye, Buddy did. Okay, so he's having a lot of fun here. The next eldest of the children, Boo Boo, right, was married and the mother of 3 children. In order of age, the twins, Walt and Waker, come after Boo Boo. Walt had been dead just over 10 years. He was killed in a freakish explosion while he was with the Army of Occupation in Japan. Ringing a bell? Right? That is Uncle Wiggily in Connecticut. All right? He was Emily's fiance or boyfriend. Waker, his junior by some 12 minutes, was a Roman Catholic priest. And then through the rest of this, we learn about Franny and Zooey. How much of this Salinger had laid out in advance over all these years of writing these stories, we don't know for sure. I don't know if anyone knows, but at least some of it was laid out. We have that, nay, glass belonged to your Uncle Seymour. So that's fun. And we find out that it's a fascinating family. They were all the kids were contestants on a radio quiz show in the 30s. They were the star contestants. They were all geniuses, and they all become in various degrees of messed up spiritual seekers. So it's yeah. So how'd you like for Esme? Good stuff, right? Yeah, really, really very beautiful. Before I start rattling on about it, any like burning questions from your side? Like, is there anything you're scratching your head over? Because sometimes that does happen. Anybody? Okay, when I used to teach this one in school, the big thing that when the kids would come in the morning after reading this story the night before, the thing that had a lot of them stumped was, wait a minute, this story's got two halves. The first half we have is it's written in the first person. It's very unusual. First half is written in the first person, and the second half is written in the third person. The first half, then the hero is the narrator. He's called I. In the second half, there's a hero called Sergeant X. And when we make the transition between the two halves, I, the narrator, says, it's on, for me, it's on page 103. This is the squalid or moving part of the story. We'll get back to that in a minute. And the scene changes. The people change too. I'm still around, but from here on in, for reasons I'm not at liberty to disclose, I've disguised myself so cunningly that even the cleverest reader will fail to recognize me. Is that so? Is the narrator so disguised that we could not recognize him? Yeah. No, he's obviously, I hope obviously, Sergeant X, right? This sergeant who in the second half now, which is after. Sorry, let me turn that off. Okay, the timing is important. The first half of the story is shortly before D-Day. The second half is several weeks after VE Day, Victory in Europe Day, the end of the war. So in between, this guy's been through a lot of trauma, and we see how deeply traumatized he is. So here's the question. Why this very unusual thing? No one does this, shifting the point of view in mid-story from first person to third person. Why does he do that? Why might he do that? What? Because the stuff does not happen arbitrarily. Any thoughts why he might do that? Yes, please, Nancy. You're mute.
I would just say he was so radically damaged during his times fighting the war. The way that he has shakes now, and he's just a wholly transformed being from sort of this innocent young soldier to just this damaged person, damaged, like so far gone. It's just shocking.
Yeah. Yeah. So in a sense, then it's actually true that you wouldn't recognize me, as he says. And perhaps also because he's so damaged, it's as if shifting from first person to third person is a way of distancing himself, attempting to distance himself from the whole thing, kind of getting out, rising above the situation a little bit, and maybe of avoiding it getting just too maudlin. That to talk about all that kind of horrible trauma and it's I. We might feel kind of like wallowing, kind of self-indulgent. So we go to a bigger, more all-embracing point of view for that. But who would think of doing that? I wouldn't. Salinger did. That's why he's Salinger and I'm not.
So, another thing I was thinking about is, at the beginning of the story, he's talking, he's in sort of a present moment, looking back, and is very coherent.
Yes.
So he may think of, that other person as not him in a way.
Yes, yes, very, very good. Thank you. Important point. The fact that we start in what is for him the present day, which is now what is it, 6 years? I think he says after the war ends. He That's right, because Esme was 13 and now she would be 19 getting married. And we see that he's very healthy at the outset of the story. He's got a sense of humor. So that's kind of the spoiler. We get at the very beginning of the story, we find out that he's going to be okay, but we only understand that okayness and how important that is when we get to the end of the story. Yeah, Jody?
So I was thinking that she was asking for a story. And he starts this part off with, this is the squalid part.
Right.
And is he describing himself? Is he describing how he's feeling and what he's experiencing as squalid?
Yeah.
Like, is this the story that he's writing to her?
This is it. This is we could ask. Well, she asked, "Would you write a story for me that's very moving and squalid?" And he says, I will, or I'll certainly try." So we might well ask, does he ever write that story? And the answer is yes. It's the one we're reading. And in fact, look at the title: "For Esme, with Love and Squalor." That's the dedication.
Yeah.
Here's the story you asked for. And what is he doing? He describes at the very beginning how he can't make it to the wedding, so instead I'll make some notes to send off, right? So and those notes are this story. This is his wedding present to her, right? And he says, and this is lovely. There's so much delicacy, kind of delicate irony in all this. If my notes should cause the groom, whom I haven't met, an uneasy moment or two, so much the better. Why might this story cause the groom an uneasy moment or two? What's this a story? What is this story about? I'm going to volunteer. It's a story about love and squalor. Right? And if the groom finds out, wait a minute, I'm not the first person to receive love from Esme. If it makes him a little uncomfortable, okay, that's good. I'll shake things up a bit. Look at this lovely, delicate irony right from the beginning. He was talking about how he wanted to go to the wedding, but then, however, I've since discussed the matter rather extensively with my wife, a breathtakingly level-headed girl. That's hilarious, right? We might say a breathtakingly beautiful girl. We might say a breathtakingly brilliant girl. Does anyone ever say, oh, breathtakingly level-headed? Right? That's about the practical world. That's about married life, right? That's about we're finding out here about this very special, very moving moment, life-changing moment. But mostly life is not full of moments like that. Mostly life is, we're called upon to be level-headed. But it's okay. He's okay. People often ask, my students would often ask, especially when they start seeing all the family connections in these stories, they would often ask, oh, is Sergeant X Seymour Glass? Because we know Seymour Glass also was deeply traumatized in the war. Any thoughts about that? We're not told for sure, but I feel quite confident that Seymour is not Sergeant X, because if Seymour had had an Esme in his life, he would have been okay. This is a story about healing. And we see in the gorgeous, final sentences, which we'll get to, the healing process taking place. It's because,
And in Franny and Zooey, the wife is really not level-headed. She's kind of, she's into her own world. I mean,
I'm
she's,
sorry, in Franny and Zooey,
yeah.
which wife?
In Franny and Zooey, Seymour's wife is not level-headed.
Yes, Seymour's wife is not in Franny and Zooey. Muriel.
Oh, that's right, Banana Fish. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
In
in
Banana
Banana
Fish, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she's
She's worn down by her mother, but that's another.
I mean, she's pretty much she's bougie, and that's about all she is.
Yeah.
She's all about doing her nails and moving the button on her sax blouse and getting the stain out of the skirt. We get one little hint of that in Sergeant X's wife on page 91. He said, when he's first sitting in the tea room, I then looked through all my pockets, including my raincoat, and finally found a couple of stale letters to reread, one from my wife telling me how the service at Shraft's 88th Street had fallen off. Right. So the one thing that we hear from his wife's letters, of all the things that we could be told, it's how the service at a restaurant is not what it used to be. Right. So the same kind of bourgeois concerns. It's interesting that Esme later asks him, are you deeply in love with your wife? And that question is never answered. He seems to be in love enough with his wife for it to work. It's okay. It seems to be a good enough marriage, but yeah. By the way,
A question about
yes,
the
please.
timing.
Yep.
Toward the very end of it,
Yeah.
there's the letter, the only
Yeah.
letter we actually read,
Yeah.
and it's from Esme to Sergeant X. And it's, I hope you forgive me for having taken 38 days to begin our correspondence, but that
Mhm.
was 6 years after they met. Did you say it was 6 years?
No. This story that we're reading now is narrated 6 years later after the war ends.
Oh, okay. All right.
Right.
But even so, she sent him the watch, which is broken.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a month and a little bit after when they met, I guess,
Yeah.
when she started to have a correspondence with him, but he's already completely destroyed.
Yeah, but also remember he describes how the package has been readdressed several times.
Right. Well,
it's
that's
been-
why I was worried about or thinking about the timing. I don't know how, that's why I thought it was maybe
Well, we're
years
actually
late.
told we're told pretty precisely what the timing is, because when he meets her, it's in April of 1944. It's shortly before D-Day. D-Day is June of 1944, and then in the
Right.
second,
This letter is in June, but he's opening it after V-Day.
he's opening it after VE Day, which is in 1945.
So this communication from her has been traveling around being
Yes,
misaddressed for a
yes,
year.
readdressed for.
And
Yeah,
in that time,
VE Day is May 8th, 1945. Yeah, so it's a year later.
so when the last time she saw him, he's in perfectly good health, charming and whatever. And by the time he gets this first letter from her,
Yeah,
he's sounds like he's sort of a vegetable, or he's really
yeah,
ruined.
yeah. And that happens. It doesn't take long.
No, one bullet, but yeah.
one day, one moment, Have you seen the first 20 minutes of Saving Private Ryan?
I haven't, somebody else mentioned that I should see it again.
Yeah, the first 20 minutes, the rest of the movie I thought was hokey. I didn't need it, but the first 20 minutes is this incredible reconstruction of the horror of the experience of D-Day. So this is what these people went through.
Right.
And Salinger, like Sergeant X, went through this like Sergeant X. He worked in intelligence services, debriefing former Nazi officials. He had the job like Sergeant X because he was fluent in German and French. A whole lot of this reflects his own personal experience. The whole business of Corporal Z, right, AKA Clay, AKA Mr. Potato Head, that just, what is photogenic, large photogenic, just dope, right? And the whole business about him shooting the cat,
Yeah.
right? And Sergeant X says, "Well, you had to shoot that cat. That wasn't a cat. That was a midget German spy in a fur coat." Right? Obviously, just dripping with irony here. What do you think about someone who, in the middle of all this squalor, my dictionary defines squalor, by the way, as filth and misery. All right. So in the middle of all this squalor of war, just in case there's not enough death, there's not enough bloodshed, let's shoot a cat. Right? You see what that tells you about the world that Sergeant X is dealing with? By the way, that's based on a real encounter. You're not going to believe who it was. It wasn't a cat, it was a chicken. And the person who shot it was Ernest Hemingway.
Oh,
True story. True story.
This letter,
Yeah.
this letter is written the day after D-Day too, by the way, her letter to him.
Oh,
It's
is
dated
it?
June.
Oh, thank you. I missed that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's filled with hope and with love, hoping he's gotten through it. But I mean, she's written him the day after.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for the first time, though,
Yep.
since he met her.
38
Yep.
days.
38 days. 38 days. Yeah. Yeah.
And wait, so tell me how then she's 19 in the
Okay.
beginning when he's going to the wedding. I
Okay.
really got mixed up in
Okay.
the
There's
time.
there's 3 points in the time frame of this story. Okay. The first point where the story begins, where he gets the wedding invitation, is 6 years after the war, is like 1949, 1950. He gets the invitation to the wedding. Okay. And then he says, okay, I can't attend, so I'll write some notes about it. And then the story proper begins. The story begins now in the second time spot, which is couple of weeks before D-Day. Okay, when he meets Esme in the tea room. Esme and Charles. We have to talk about her great brother Charles. All right. And then the third is, then we have the break in the middle of the story. We switch from first person I to third person Sergeant X, and now he's a mess, having gone through D-Day and so much afterward. 5 campaigns, we're told, after D-Day, and then and he gets the package.
But we're assuming he recovers because he's talking about going to this wedding.
Yes.
He's not,
Yes.
can't walk, can't speak.
Right. We're going to get to, because this is the climax of the story, we're going to get to how we know that he recovers.
Okay.
We're going to get to the moment that his recovery begins. But we do know in retrospect, from the beginning, because he's cheerfully, in a very cheerful, normal way, talking about beating his breathtakingly level-headed wife and so forth. when he goes to the church on this rainy day, and one of the great things about being a writer, a fiction writer, is it's like being God. You can control everything, including the weather. You want a really messy, rainy day for his encounter with Esme. You know, going into that church is like going into shelters, going into the sanctuary. And here's these children singing, and this one angelic voice that rings out above the others. And the description of her, it's so simple, and she's so beautiful. And then he runs into her again in the tea room. And her first comment, right? I thought all Americans despised tea. Right? She's met a bunch of American soldiers, most of them very boorish. One of them threw a bottle of whiskey through her, what was it, her grandfather or somebody's window. There were a lot of, GIs in their downtime could be very rowdy and very drunk, understandably. Right? But I thought all Americans despised tea. There's a preconception. Do we ever have preconceptions about people? Right? Do preconceptions prevent us from seeing the reality of the other? Yeah. But look what's happening here. Oh, from the first moment, here goes a preconception. I thought Americans despised tea, she said. It wasn't the observation of a smart aleck, but that of a truth lover. Or a statistics lover. All right. Throw in a little humor again. A truth lover. Oh, she's this beautiful angel with this lovely voice. She's a seeker of truth. She's got this very precocious vocabulary. And so beautifully put together, so poised. He talks about her erect posture. But then the one physical detail that belies all of that on the next page. She placed her fingers flat on the table edge like someone at a seance, then almost instantly closed her hands. Her nails were bitten down to the quick. Okay, you see how that belies all her precocious talk, her poise, her perfect manners, her being so well-mannered she doesn't want to tell him her last name because she has a title and she doesn't want to flaunt her nobility. But all that is belied by, right, this deep anxiety. Perfectly understandable, she's lost both of her parents. And now she and her brother being raised by a governess and an aunt. And she sees a couple of pages later, oh yes, you seem quite intelligent for an American. All right, that's pretty funny. Blah, blah, blah. Are you very deeply in love with your wife? Or am I being too personal? And then a little bit later, I'm not terribly gregarious. I purely came over because I thought you looked extremely lonely. You have an extremely sensitive face. You see her exquisite sensitivity in seeing that. How many 13-year-old girls are going to see that and act on that basis? Reach out on that basis. And then she says, in fact, I said she was right, that I had been feeling lonely and that I was very glad she'd come over. I'm training myself to be more compassionate. My aunt says I'm a terribly cold person. Right? I'm training myself to be more compassionate. Anyone here tried to train themselves to be more compassionate? Right? Welcome to the Dharma path. This is what we're doing. Right? Compassion is our business, and business is sometimes not so good, but we're trying. And then Charles. How great is Charles? How great is Charles? Right? What's his first question? Why do people in films kiss sideways? That's great. That's great. The innocence of that, the almost rudeness of that, right? And she says, he misses our father very much. He was Slain in North Africa. What is she doing there? She's spelling out the word rather than saying it to spare Charles's feelings. Right? She doesn't want to talk in front of Charles about the father being killed. So, right, we all remember the grown-ups spelling stuff so that we kids wouldn't understand what they were saying. In my house, they would just speak Yiddish. And Charles gives a Bronx cheer, right? And finally, Charles asks his riddle. What did one wall say to another wall? Meet you at the corner. All right. Now, as I said, when you're the fiction writer, you are God. You control everything. And if you're a good fiction writer, you use that power to make every detail tell. Nothing is done arbitrarily. So the riddle could have been, why did the chicken cross the road? It could have been, why do firemen wear red suspenders? Right? Could have. Do you all know why firemen wear red suspenders? It's to hold up their pants.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's what did one wall say to another wall? Meet you at the corner. Of all the old corny old riddles, why that one? When we think of wall, like, oh, there's a wall between us. Talking to her is like a wall. Remember, we spoke about how in Banana Fish, Muriel, her name resembles mural. She's like a nicely painted wall. You know, she's lovely. She's all, made up and, perfectly made up and clothed and all that. But she's like a wall. It's no communication. We're all kind of behind walls from each other, right? Partly out of our preconceptions. I thought all Americans despise tea, et cetera, et cetera. Look at how much separation there is between the two of them. She's British, he's English. She's female, he's male. She's nobility, he's a commoner. She's a civilian, he's in the military. She's had this horrendous experience of being orphaned. He's going to have this horrendous experience of PTSD. Right? There's all these walls between us. But what did one wall say to the other wall? Meet you at the corner. Oh, we're behind walls. We're like walls, but our walls can meet. Our walls can meet. We can do that. We can meet halfway. We can communicate. How? We'll see. Stay tuned here. Okay, she asks what about his profession. She says he likes to think of himself as a short story writer. This was the situation Salinger was in at the time of the war. He was writing. And then she asks, very innocently, the cruelest question to ask in that situation. Published? And he's about to go on a diatribe about, how most editors in America were a bunch of, but she cuts him off. Right. Okay. And blah, blah, blah. Out they go with Charles limping tragically. Oh, I want to point out, I mentioned in the previous times completely, just aside from the beautiful human element and the thematic stuff and the Dharma element in these stories, just Salinger's skill in portraying physical posturing, how the postures of the characters are always so precisely observed and precisely evoked. Where is this? Ah, yes. In my book, it's bottom of 96. Charles gave me the fishy, yeah, he certainly has green eyes, haven't you, Charles? Charles gave me the fishy look my question deserved, then wriggled downward and forward in his chair, till all of his body was under the table except his head, which he left wrestler's bridge style on the chair seat. Can you see that? Isn't that the kind of thing you've seen a 5-year-old do? It's so great. There's not a wasted word there. We see it exactly. They're orange, he said in a strained voice. He picked up a corner of the tablecloth and put it over his handsome, deadpan little face. Sometimes he's brilliant and sometimes he's not, Esme said. That's great. And then they leave the tea room, but then they come back. Charles wants to give him a kiss. And Esme says, "Goodbye. I hope you return from the war with all your faculties intact. Gee, I hope you get through this ordeal without going stark raving bonkers. I hope your brain doesn't explode." You know, it's a deeply wonderful, compassionate thing to say, but also, she's a truth seeker. She pulls no punches. I hope you don't go nuts. And as we see, he pretty much does. Okay. So that's all the setup. That's the first half.
But Dean, I
Yes.
have a stylistic question.
Yes.
So when he's writing in first person, there's no quotes for what he's saying. Is that normal or is that stylistic or?
Oh, interesting. Is that so? He never he is all his dialogue in indirect
Yeah, there's no
dialogue?
quotation marks for him. Yeah.
Uh-huh. You're right. I answered that I'd like nothing better. But yeah, interesting. Thank you. All my years of rereading this, I never noticed that. Thank you. Yeah, there's always more to see.
And then the other thought,
But in the second half, yeah, and that's got to be deliberate. That's
Yeah.
way too consistent and precise to be arbitrary. Then the second half, he does
yeah. Yeah.
give us his direct quote. I have to contemplate that. Yeah.
And in a way, isn't the story that he writes to her about Squalor actually confessional?
Yeah, I mean, he's showing us himself at this, and again, this is very much Salinger's own experience. Salinger, again, was hospitalized for the same kind of symptoms, and I think only someone who had been through something like this could write about it so intimately. The having his teeth are on the verge of falling out, and yet he compulsively keeps poking at the loose tooth with the tip of his tongue. He can't stop wiggling that tooth. Right? And the throwing up into the wastebasket and then not having the energy to take the wastebasket out of the room. There's the right. If squalor is misery and filth, There, we've seen plenty of misery. There's some filth for you. So the last scene for us, the last scene of this is taking place in a room that smells like puke, appropriately.
And dirty feet.
Yeah, and dirty. Yes, Clay with his dirty feet. Not the names are never accidental in Salinger. The other guy's name is Clay. He's a lump of clay. He's a potato
With feet of clay.
with feet of clay. Yes, thank you. Right, feet of clay. And Esme, I mean, it's a beautiful name. It's French, and she likes to speak French. And we've got to suspect that there's, that her name is posing the question: is me? Oh, this other person. Is this other person me? Are we somehow the same, even though we're so different in so many ways? We can never say any of this stuff for sure, and we never want to feel, oh, this is definitive. Here he's doing this, he's doing this, he's doing that, and now we've got all the answers. Now we can tuck this one away. It's always opening up. I mean, you guys are showing me stuff I haven't seen over all the years and stuff. There's always more. There's always more. It's never definitive. That's what makes it so rich and so rewarding. Right? We just keep finding more stuff in it. This is why you can reread and rewatch Shakespeare forever. Right? Another name, right? And oh, this one is great. And of course, it's historically accurate. Clay is trying to get him to go listen to the radio. We're going to hear Bob Hope. Right? Of course, Bob Hope was the one out there entertaining the troops. And as just before Clay leaves the room, he says, come on down and listen to Hope on the radio, boy. Right? Listen to Hope. Right? But mere hope is not going to be enough for Sergeant X in this case. It's not enough. Every single little thing in that scene, right? The horror of Clay, Corporal Z killing the cat. There's so much violence that maybe it can't, killing, squalor that can't be avoided. And here's some that's completely gratuitous. I say, oh, my girlfriend says I was temporarily insane. Yeah, there's my excuse. No, you were just an a-hole. Sorry.
There's another element of the soldier and he says you killed that pussycat in as manly a way as you could.
Yeah.
That sort of always they've got to prove something all the time.
Yeah.
Because they know how to kill, and we seem to be in a world of kill, so
yeah,
we'll kill the pussycat too.
Yeah. And no one more caught up in that manly ethic than Hemingway, by the way. Hemingway, but his war was the First World War. At this point, he was too old, but he couldn't stay away from the action. He was there trying to be a journalist, but he showed up in the camp and wanted to show Salinger how good his gun was, and dragged him out of the tent and shot a chicken.
Really? That's really a story?
That's a true, I swear to God, true story.
And then he took his gun and shot himself.
Yeah.
That's how manly he was.
Eventually, yeah, eventually. But by the way, Hemingway was I believe overall rather kind professionally to Salinger, and encouraged him in his early career, which is interesting because their style, their approach is so diametrically different. Look at the letters that X tries to read. This is on page 106 in my book. A letter from his older brother in Albany. Right? By the way, what more prosaic place than Albany? Right? Every touch. And yet it seems real. It doesn't seem deliberate. It doesn't seem like artifice, but it's all just beautiful artifice. His older brother in Albany. He opened so he starts reading the letter. He loosely resolved to read the letter straight through, but read only the top half of the first page. He stopped after the words, "Now that the GD war is over, and you probably have a lot of time over there, how about sending the kids a couple of bayonets or swastikas?" Right? Can you feel how deeply, deeply offensive that is? Right? Starting with the GD war, like we're too delicate to write out goddamn. Right? To maintain that delicacy with someone who's been through the hell that Sergeant X has been through. Right? And then, yeah, send us back some. It's like, oh, you're like over there in Disney World. Send us back some souvenirs.
Yeah, it's the observer of war as entertainment.
Yeah, 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 which is just so deeply offensive. And can you see how isolating it is for Sergeant X? Oh my God, this is the family I'm going to go back to. This is how they're going to how they're going to clearly not understand what I've been through. Right, so that's the emotional subtext. That's, again, not random, not arbitrary, really important. So now we can see why, with perfect justification, he tears the letter up into little pieces. After he'd torn it up, he looked down at the pieces as they lay in the wastebasket. He saw that he had overlooked an enclosed snapshot. He could make out somebody's feet standing on a lawn somewhere. Yeah. There's the Perry, we've been doing some meditation on the sensation of our feet on the ground, right? Right. There's the feet
Yeah.
on the
And in
ground.
this case, he doesn't even care whose they are.
He doesn't care whose they are. He's not going to get the feet on the ground. That's one more casualty of all this emotional disconnection and all this trauma. Oh, I love this line about how he helps Clay with his letters back to his girlfriend Loretta. I keep hearing the Beatles song "Get Back." It's an anachronism, but "Get back, Loretta, in your high heel shoes and your low neck sweater."
There's the John Prine song too, where the war veteran is living out his days with his wife Loretta.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
great, great, yeah, and so Sergeant X, being a literary type, helps Clay with his letters back to Loretta. Loretta was Clay's girl. They intended to get married at their earliest convenience. She wrote to him fairly regularly from a paradise of triple exclamation points and inaccurate observations. God, I love that. A paradise of triple exclamation points and inaccurate observations. There's nothing terrible about that. It's just, that's the extent of most people's literary skills and most people's their sensibility, the acuity of their awareness of the world around them is just not very sharp. It's the world of just regular people. Regular people. But going back to a world of regular people is going to be really hard. When you're a sensitive soul like him and you've been through what he's been through. So finally, he notices the package from the letter and the package from Esme that's been sitting on the desk for however long. Along with the watch. We'll get to the watch in a second. But the PS from Charles. Hello, 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 hello. Love and kisses, Chales. Right. Charmingly misspelling his own name. Right. So, if you're Sergeant X, who do you relate to better? Who do you feel more comradeship with? Your entire family back home? Corporal Z, who's the stand-in for all your fellow soldiers? Or this 5-year-old boy,
It's
Charles?
Charles.
Yeah, Charles. Yeah, Charles. Charles is the Charles is an imperial name. Charles is an emperor's name. Yeah, he's the winner.
Who this guy met for 15 minutes in a tea room.
Yes, and
That
met
has
at
your connection to because they were two authentic people, because they were
yes.
young and unjaded.
Meet you at the corner.
Yeah. Meet you on where on our level. Where
On
we are.
on our level, exactly right. We'll meet you in innocence, meet you in truth,
Yeah.
meet you in sincerity. And then the one more thing, which now we get when Esme presents him with the watch. Is that watch an important object for her?
Yeah, it really was.
That's her memento from her dead father. That's arguably her most precious possession. And she sends it to this GI that she met for 15 minutes and will never see again. Can you see what
Well, she might if he gets to the wedding. Maybe she will.
Yeah. But he doesn't, because that's pretty much usually the way life is. Right. So how is her training, her attempt to train herself to become more compassionate, how's it coming along?
Wow.
Yeah. She passed the exam. She got an A.
But Dean,
Yes.
so it's kind of interesting, like the meet you at the corner piece and then her compassion training.
Yes.
I don't want to get ahead of anything. But two walls can't just meet, they have to support each other. They're
Yeah.
completely interconnected.
Mm-hmm.
Right? A
Okay.
wall without another wall becomes a floor. Right? I just find that piece, that riddle just gets deeper and deeper. And for her,
Yeah. I mean, there's different levels on which we support each other. You know, sometimes we're going to there's going to be appropriate. There's going to be the circumstances. The karma works out in such a way that we give material support to a person. We give emotional support to a person. Maybe long term. Oh, how many times have you said to a friend, "I'm here for you," and then you have to really mean it, and you have to keep right. You have to show up. You have to when they call you, when you see, their name on your phone, you have to take the call. And maybe you take it all the time. Maybe sometimes you don't, right? And some people we're going to be on the bus with them, on the subway with them one time, and give them a nice smile, and that's it forever. But it's the same impulse. It's bodhicitta. It's to whatever degree I'm living this radiance of life, of truth, of what Trungpa Rinpoche called basic goodness. May I share it. May I share it with the other. May I share it with you.
and can I add something to that?
Please.
And so for her to send that watch, it almost seems sort of transcendent of sharing one thing from this person to the other.
Yeah.
That sense of other disappears.
Yes.
This is the most precious thing I have.
Yeah.
And giving it to someone else who might need it,
Yeah.
it's the same as her having it.
Yes. 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 Meet you at the corner. Yeah, because if we and you know, Jody, when we used to do Tonglen training with our teacher Charles Genoux, and the one thing he always emphasized was it's not noble. It's not, if you think that Tonglen is noble, if you think you're making a sacrifice, if you think you're being a martyr, you've missed the point. That what you always had to do first was, he used this phrase over and over, exchanging the sense of self and other. Right? You know, I often think of the sense of self as being, you know, like those badges people wear at conventions. Hi, my name is Jody, right? And I've got one. Hi, my name is Dean. So we're different people, right? But we all wear a badge that says, hi, my name is me. My name is I. I am this. My name is the self. You 8 billion others, you're just others, right? As Charles put it once, he said, we all agree, he said, self and other are like here and there. We all agree there's a self and other, we just disagree. We all agree that there's a self, we just disagree about who it is. Right? Isn't it interesting? Out of 8 billion people on the planet, they're all other people. They're all the supporting cast, and the one person who's the self, who's the star of the show, is me. What are the odds? Well, we know the odds, 8 billion to 1. Right? And that's the root of, not just the root of all our selfishness, it's the root of all our suffering. And so you know, we do all these exercises. You're sitting there at the red light, fuming, furious because you need to get to your destination. Well, all these happy people who have, you know, it's a red light, it's a red light, it's a red light. How do we get out of that suffering? Well, how about for the duration of the red light, identify with all those people on the cross street? For them, it's a green light. You exchange the self and other, and then, you can enjoy the God bless you, enjoy the green light. Right? So Charles, in directing us to do Tonglen, would always start with essentially taking that badge, hi, I'm self, and the other person, hi, I'm other, and exchanging the badges. And then you could take on the other person's, you know, sickness and suffering, or give them all your wealth and your, you know, all your happiness and everything. Because we've given up that artificial separation of self and other. So yeah, Jody, I absolutely agree with that, and that's the profundity of this story. And you know, we're fortunate. Yeah, and you don't need any background in, you know, formal Buddhist training to be able to appreciate this, but I think it could help. You know, I think
So,
having our Dharma goggles on helps
right.
us to read this at its depth. Yeah.
I kind of just realized that, you know, Charles at age 5 just intuitively, inherently gets it, right? He
Yes.
just knows. He just knows.
He's got the beginner's mind.
Yeah, but she has to put it in, she has to practice.
She has to practice.
But
Yeah.
but she's doing some good practice, isn't she?
Yeah, she's doing some really, really good. May we all practice that well.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Perry.
I think if two walls don't meet at the corner,
Yeah.
we call them opposing walls,
Yeah.
which would be the opposite of compassion.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Which is,
opposing is part of our problem.
yeah. Yeah. That's what's mostly going on most of the time for most people.
That's how I think when you said Salinger could have had any old 5-year-old joke,
Yeah.
but this joke, because of its sense of walls and connection, not connecting, is really
It's a deep,
interesting to
yeah,
think about.
it's a deep teaching. It's a deep teaching. So all of this works so beautifully, and we could leave it at that. Oh, she sent him the watch. But Salinger goes one step further. One step further. It was a long time, I'm on the last page. It was a long time before X could set the note aside, let alone lift Esme's father's wristwatch out of the box. When he did finally lift it out, he saw that its crystal had been broken in transit. Okay, what does that make you think or feel? Yeah, Jody?
The there was something unbroken. The watch was the thing that represented
Yeah,
her compassion and their connection and interconnectedness. The watch itself was just an object.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Good. Anyone else got a take on this?
I think it shows that through time things deteriorate. They get broken, they get manhandled. This man has been manhandled in the
Yeah.
war and he is broken.
Yeah,
And then this goes on to say, I don't know if it still works.
yeah.
And that's the big question. Is he still okay?
Is he still? Yes. Is he still okay? Right. The crystal is the outer part.
Right.
The glass. The glass. Right.
And there it is, the glass.
There it is. See, right. The whole glass family. Glass. I think this whole motif of glass running through all the Salinger stuff. It's sensitivity in both senses of the word. Right. On the one hand, it's seeing more than right. See more. You see more than other people. You see more deeply. You're more open. But the other aspect of it is that you're more vulnerable, and that's connected. Seeing more makes you more vulnerable. That's where,
Because the
and
fragility
that's where more fragile, and that's where Dharma practice is required. If we're able to, because it's really only through the stability that we gain in meditative practice that we can really, really see more, really see the depth of the suffering of others, and not have it kill us, and be able to help the situation. When he did finally lift it out, he saw that its crystal had been broken in transit. He wondered if the watch was otherwise undamaged, but he hadn't the courage to wind it and find out. Oh, that's so deep, right? That's so good. He hadn't the courage to wind. So there's really two things there. Has this wonderful gift really been destroyed in transit? But on the deeper level, this is about him. He's certainly damaged, at least on the face of it, right? The crystal. But does the damage go so deep that he's irreparably damaged? It makes sense that he hasn't the courage to wind it and find out. He just sat with it in his hand for another long period. Then suddenly, almost ecstatically, he felt sleepy. Now remember, it's been said earlier in this second half of the story that he hasn't slept in however many days. What has happened here?
He's been awakened.
He has at least started to awaken, or he has at least started to heal. He's started to heal. Ecstatically sleepy.
Yeah.
Right? This is his moment of letting go. This is his moment of his moment of okayness, his moment of allowing himself to relax into this love that has been extended to him and feel its healing power. And then comes the brilliant last line. You take a really sleepy man, Esme, and he always stands a chance of again becoming a man with all his and then he stops, with all his FACULTIES
Yes.
intact. What is he doing?
The same thing she did for Charles.
Yes. He's spelling it out. He is to spare himself in the same way that she spared Charles. He's spelling it out. But also, I think remember, he has not been, he wrote this thing in the book. Oh, that's we missed this whole thing where the German woman, the Nazi, had written, "Dear God, life is hell." This single statement, and he writes underneath it the quote from Dostoevsky: "Fathers and rather teachers and fathers, I ask, what is hell? It is the inability to love." Right, which is totally relevant to the whole thing. But then sees in horror that what he's written is an indecipherable scrawl. Right. He's lost all his letters, and this is a literary guy. He's lost all his letters. And what's happening now? He's regaining his letters. So when he goes Faculties, it's almost as if he's putting his sanity, he's putting his nervous system, he's putting his faculties back together again, letter by letter.
When Esme says goodbye to him in the tea room,
Yes.
I hope you return from the war with all your faculties intact.
Yes. Yes. And now we're seeing that he will. He won't wind up like Seymour. He'll wind up like himself, the narrator that we saw at the beginning, a regular, normal guy enjoying civilian life with a sense of humor about things.
And mostly because of Esme.
Because of Esme. Esme has saved him. Yeah.
I just looked it up, and the name Esme means loved or esteemed.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Which makes a lot of sense. Look at this young woman who was, what was she, 13 years old or something?
Yeah.
She's had this unbelievable impact on him.
Yeah.
So much so that she is probably his root out of his brokenness.
Yeah. Yes, she is. She is. If you can get through life and do something like that for one person, I think you've done pretty well.
This is amazing.
It is amazing.
It's freaking brilliant.
It is freaking brilliant. It is freaking brilliant and freaking wonderful. Yeah. If it were just technically, just in literary terms, this brilliant, without the beauty of the heart beauty of the thing, it would still be amazing, but it's both. Yeah, absolutely.
So I like how the British, if you ask a British person how they are, they'll often say I'm brilliant, meaning I'm good.
Yeah. So
which
yeah,
is
this
kind
is
of important too. We are brilliant,
Yep.
not out of ego, but out of nature.
Yep.
This is amazing.
Good. So,
One question.
yes, please.
That quote that he attributes to Dostoevsky, what is hell? I maintain that it is the suffering of being unable to love. To me, that was incredible, little dharmic statement. But do you know where that comes from in Dostoevsky?
No. We could probably look it up.
We'll have to look that up. Okay.
Check with Mr. Google.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good. So next time we'll get to the final story in the book, Teddy. Let me just say, buckle up for that one, and I hope you'll perhaps feel motivated to read the other stories in between this one and Teddy, because they're all great. So may all beings be so lucky as to encounter an Esme in their life, and even better, may all of us work out how to become Esmes for others. Thanks, and see ya.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you, Dean.
Take care.
Take care.